Relatability, an adjective that has become so important, sometimes even subconsciously, in our modern culture that has become now a prime criteria for valuing people. And not just people. According to a New Yorker's research, the word relatable is now used to critically value and praise books as well. Apparently, what makes a good novel nowadays is its relatability, not its story or its message or the way it's written. Through some famous YouTubers and celebrities, today I want to discern what relatability is, why we look for it, and why I think it's becoming increasingly dangerous. 100 years ago, something relatable was, in the Shakespearean sense, something that could be told. The contemporary meaning of relatable was first polarized by the TV industry. Shocker. I hate to mention this guy, but Freud theorized about the concept of identification within the personal sphere, which was then applied to the arts. So wanting to relate oneself and one's experiences in a work of art is not new. However, identification with, say, a fictional character requires the viewer or the reader to be, at least in part, actively engaged with that media text. But for the work itself to be relatable, the book, the movie, or the person needs to be the one that accommodates us, that needs to reflect us as viewers or readers. So in contrast to the process of identification, which becomes a mirroring image of our own experiences, the concept of relatability is like a selfie to the individual subjectivity, or rather, narcissism. A dark side of relatability is that it deters creativity. If a YouTuber, for example, wants to achieve certain views and subscribers, it needs to adhere to certain relatable standards. In order to do so, they produce seemingly different content, but with the same underlying concept, so copies and copies of the same behavior. And what does that do really in any area? It produces content and works that don't challenge us nor our creativity. So relatability is a failure of addressing alternatives as well as a way to avoid confrontation of what is unfamiliar. In other words, if everything that we appreciate and seek for is what is relatable to us, we close off exposure to new things and learn to find empathy only in the things and in the people which we can relate to, brushing off the unrelatable ones as not even worth looking at. A way to convert this thinking could be exactly that of trying to think of the unrelatable to us. What is it about myself, my life, my past experiences that is making it difficult for me to get that? Because the way in which we use the word relatability nowadays also implies that whatever is relatable is also common and normative. Therefore, it presents itself as the universally accepted way to view, experience, and socially interact. Because relatability is not simply something that we relate to, it encompasses a series of signifiers, which we seek in YouTubers, for example. We expect humbleness, vulnerability, and awkwardness in order for them to be relatable, to be more like us. That's why when someone like Emma Chamberlain, girl who has always joked about relatable issues, achieves 4 million subscribers, she loses her relatability, and people feel she has changed.
Lately I've been thinking about having to die alone.
Now, I never watched Emma Chamberlain, so I went and watched her channel, and objectively, her content didn't change. Subjectively, she has now achieved a success which doesn't quite fit with her relatability status. Likewise, we can discuss, better not, everyone has done it already, about how the change in his content has been negatively affecting a YouTuber like Bobby Burns. In reality, the majority of comments that I've seen about him related more to a personal change, the fact that his move to LA has transformed him into everything he wasn't supposed to be. Others have commented on his perceived fakeness, the fact that he allegedly used Shane Dawson's popularity and that he's undeserving of it. Basically, both Emma and Bobby are not perceived anymore by a lot of people as humble, vulnerable, awkward, or at least not as much as they used to. They've lost relatability. I think Bobby Burns hit the nail in the head when he recently decided to personify his different content into Nasty and the old Bobby Burns. He's trying to give people someone to hate and someone to root for, effectively proving that the old Bobby Burns is the good guy. I think that's very smart. And that's also why relatability is not sustainable, because everyone can be relatable at some point in their life or for some experiences that they went through, and someone can certainly try and successfully build their own image as a relatable person, but eventually, be it for money, success, views, subscribers, luxury house, or whatever it may be, that image comes crumbling down, and at that point the audience feels betrayed. Since I don't think it's fair to talk about other people but not yourself, although I don't like to talk about myself, I will briefly today. So I will lay down for you immediately. I'm not relatable, never have been, and never I would want to be. Why would I want to be relatable? I want to be unique. I want to be different than the majority of people, and I want to know people that are different as well. And that's probably why I'll never reach 1 million subscribers. And I'm fine with that. In fact, the inspiration for this video came to me last week. I was at an event/party in Milan. I'll spare you the previous discussion, but basically I was talking to a bunch of people and I said something along the lines of, I actually like myself, something like that. This was not, I mean, now this is out of context, but back then it made sense. Everyone turned like I just admitted of being a murderer or something. And this scene from Mean Girls popped into my mind.
My hairline is so weird. My pores are huge.
My nail beds suck.
Confidence shouldn't equal arrogance. They're two different things. Yet, in the age of relatability and all the signifiers it encompasses, my statement was automatically seen as an admission of everything that is opposed to what relatability represents. So in this analogy, I'm Cuddy. Great. But wouldn't you say that Regina George is far more self-absorbed and arrogant than Carrie is, at least at the beginning of the movie? This is not making any sense if you haven't watched Mean Girls. I apologize. But again, if you haven't watched Mean Girls, that's on you. Yet in her group, Regina George is the more relatable one because she's doing what she's supposed to do, which is quite ironic if you think about it, because in certain cases, it almost feels like relatability becomes the same as homogeneity, which is exactly the opposite of what That's So Relatable started off as. Let's go back to the Mean Girls analogy because that was working so well for me. My point is, you don't know which ones are the Regina Georges and the Carries of this world simply by looking at a screen or reading an interview. Your judgment gets clouded by apparent relatability. Is it a coincidence that Taylor Swift's latest work of Reputation, a much darker, self-absorbed analysis of her fame, is not being as resonant as 1989 was? Don't get me wrong, she's obviously crazy popular. Reputation sold 1.2 million units in the first week of its release, but it took an additional 17 weeks to hit the 2 million milestone. That's longer than Swift's past 3 albums combined. Swift's brand has always been a relatability. She framed herself as the dorky American sweetheart girl next door that wrote about breakups and posted pictures of her cats, that reacted to fame in lovably awkward ways, and that was personal with her fans. With Reputation, she has not just shaken the good girl facade. She doesn't sing about the same things that she used to. She sings about going out and celebrity feuds, something which is clearly not relatable to the average person. She's clearly not one of us anymore. But I've got news for you. She never was. Hold on, how are you called? Swifties? Don't come after me, okay? I'm not saying that she's not generally a good person. She may as well be. I don't know. I don't know her. What I'm saying is that this relatable image is a very well constructed form of guerrilla marketing and PR. Whether she's truly being herself, that's beside the point. We all exercise in impression management. As much as a celebrity like Taylor Swift or Jennifer Lawrence, or a YouTuber like Zoella or Alfie Days or Emma Chamberlain try to use relatability to their advantage, and why they shouldn't is a strategy for a reason, the relationship with their fans is still a parasocial one. The problem is that this pervasive search for relatability makes us actually believe that their stage persona is the same as their big stage persona. Jennifer Lawrence falls down and swears a lot, Shailene Woodley and Shane Dawson make a point of not being materialistic, Anna Kendrick says she likes fast food, Taylor Swift is the girl that never gets chosen, even PewDiePie, despite his unquestionable success, is the underdog, the lone guy against traditional corporate giant media. Is this to say that they don't have issues? Of course not. But we want to make sure that they highlight every way in which they are like us, rather than the ways in which they're not. We like to think that this openness of relatability, being the cool girl, for example, a girl that talks about poop and doesn't care about makeup, that doesn't conform to traditional femininity, is progressive. And in certain ways, in certain situations, it may be. However, if the cool girl would challenge her relatability, would challenge the way in which we think about her and about us, would we still like her so much? Apparently not.